Let me start by saying I never wanted kids. Ever. Not when I was little, not when I hit 18, and not when everyone told me, oh, you'll change your mind in your 30s. Well, I'm 29 now, and guess what? I haven't. I like my freedom, I like sleeping in, I like spending my money on things I want, and I like my body exactly the way it is, not ripped apart from childbirth. I'm not heartless, I'm just honest. Everyone in my family has known this about me for years. Which is why I was absolutely stunned when my sister and parents sat me down and asked me to carry a baby for my sister. Like, me. Of all people. Let's rewind. My name's Haley Miller, I'm a web developer in Austin, Texas. I rent a sleek little apartment downtown, I have a cat named Pasta, and I spend my evenings either gaming or doing yoga, whatever suits my mood. I have a solid group of friends, no boyfriend at the moment, by choice, and I don't really talk to my family all that often unless it's holidays or birthdays. My family, on the other hand, is very tight-knit, if you're into forced emotional enmeshment. My sister is Lindsay Bowman, 36, married to Tyler, 39. She's a teacher turned homesteader turned faith-based life coach, her words, not mine. She and Tyler have been trying to conceive for about 6 years now. IVF, hormone therapy, acupuncture, you name it. I've always been supportive from a distance. I sent cards after miscarriages. I made a donation when they tried to adopt privately. I even helped them set up a GoFundMe when they needed help with fertility treatments. But what I didn't know was that, quietly, my parents, Eileen and Greg, were building a plan that involved me. It happened on a Sunday night in April. I came over for family dinner, which usually means Eileen's burnt roast and passive-aggressive jabs at me not being married. I almost skipped it, but Eileen guilted me into coming by saying Lindsay had big news. Dinner was normal at first. Greg was talking about a new car he wanted. Tyler barely said a word. Lindsay looked overly excited. Like, birthday party excited. Halfway through dessert, Eileen said, let's all move into the living room. We have something to share. I followed them into the den, still holding a slice of store-bought apple pie. Everyone sat down, and Lindsay took my hand. Her face was glowing. I immediately felt uneasy. Haley, she said softly, we've prayed about this for months. We feel God's been preparing our hearts. We want to ask you something huge. I froze. Tyler leaned forward, looking like he was about to throw up. We want to ask if you'd consider being our surrogate. I laughed. It just burst out of me. A reaction I couldn't control. It was that weird, dry, nervous laugh where you don't know if they're joking or about to say something serious. Lindsay kept smiling. Tyler looked at his feet. Eileen reached over and touched my knee. Sweetheart, she said, we know you've said motherhood isn't for you. But this wouldn't be your baby. You'd just be helping your sister fulfill her calling. Her calling? I blinked. Why me? I asked, trying to keep my voice even. Greg answered. Because you're healthy. You're single. You've never had any reproductive issues. And most importantly, your family. There was this weird pause, like they expected me to immediately burst into tears and say yes. I'm sorry, I said. But no. The entire room deflated. Lindsay blinked, then said, Haley, this isn't just about us. This is about faith. This is about legacy. You have the ability to give us what God hasn't. I'm not an incubator, I said, now feeling the pressure twist in my gut. I don't want kids. I don't want to be pregnant. That's never changed. Eileen tilted her head and said, but you're not keeping the child. It's not your responsibility. That was their logic. That because I wouldn't be raising the baby, my body was fair game. That because I had the ability, I should sacrifice it for the greater good. They offered to pay for the surrogacy, not market rate, just medical costs and a $10,000 gift. But none of that mattered. It wasn't about money. It was about my bodily autonomy, and they didn't seem to care. Tyler, who'd been quiet until now, muttered, we just thought you'd want to help. And that word, help, broke something in me. Like saying no was the same as letting them drown. Lindsay burst into tears. Eileen hugged her while glaring at me over her shoulder like I'd committed murder. Greg stood up and walked to the kitchen, shaking his head. "I'm not doing this," I said, grabbing my purse. "I'm sorry you're going through this. I really am. But this is a hard no." I left. No one followed me. Not even Tyler. The next morning, my phone blew up. First it was Eileen. "You really showed your true colors last night. Selfish and ungrateful. I raised you better." Then Greg. "You embarrassed your sister. You could have at least said you'd think about it." Then Lindsay herself. "I hope you never need someone the way I needed you last night." For the next week, I got dozens of messages. Cousins. Family friends. Even Lindsay's church group. Some of them begged me to reconsider. Others outright called me a narcissist. I changed my number after someone left a voicemail praying that I'd experienced the pain of childlessness to understand God's lesson. And then it got worse. Eileen stopped speaking to me altogether. When I dropped off her birthday gift the next week, a necklace I'd special ordered with her birthstone, she sent it back in the mail with a note. "Maybe you'll have something to give when you grow a conscience." Lindsay wrote a blog post titled "When Your Family Turns Away from God's Plan," and it was clearly about me. People I hadn't talked to in years were sharing it, commenting things like "Sending prayers to your toxic sister" and "God sees your pain, mama." I was stunned. Betrayed. Completely vilified. Like refusing to give up my body for 9 months made me Satan in a V-neck. I tried to let it go. I really did. But something inside me snapped when my dad, who I always thought was the reasonable one, called me 2 weeks later and said, "Don't bother coming to Thanksgiving. Until you fix what you broke, this family has nothing to say to you." That was when I realized, if they were going to treat me like the villain, I might as well speak the truth they didn't want the world to hear. Because I wasn't the only one keeping secrets. You know how people always say blood is thicker than water, like it's some unbreakable law of nature? That family will always be there for you, no matter what. Yeah. That's a lie. After I said no to being a surrogate for my sister Lindsay, it was like someone threw a switch in my family. I went from quirky younger daughter to selfish disgrace overnight. The Miller group chat, yes, that's what it was called, turned into a smear campaign. If I said anything, even just a happy birthday to one of my cousins, I got ignored or responded to with a prayer emoji. But it didn't stop with silence. Oh no. This became a full-scale boycott. First it was Thanksgiving. I was uninvited, plain and simple. My dad, Greg, said it would just be too painful for Lindsay to see you. Painful? For her? What about the fact that I got thrown to the wolves for protecting my own damn body? I ended up having Chinese takeout on my couch that night. Just me, my cat, and Die Hard. It was the loneliest holiday I'd had in years. Not because I missed them, but because I started to realize something much worse: they had never really respected me in the first place. I've always been the other daughter. Lindsay was the miracle baby, born after Eileen had 3 miscarriages. She was their sunshine. The one with the curls and the dimples and the perfect grades. I was the accident. The surprise blessing. The tomboy who climbed trees and didn't want to wear dresses to church. I think they started seeing me as a problem from the time I was 12. It only got worse as I got older. I didn't go to a Christian college. I didn't marry young. I didn't join the local megachurch like they hoped. I pursued computer science, dyed my hair black, and got a tattoo on my ribs when I turned 23. And even though I'm financially independent, healthy, and happy, none of that ever mattered as much as the fact that I didn't follow the path God laid out. So when I said no to surrogacy, it wasn't just about the baby. It was the last straw. The final offense. And they made me pay for it. Christmas came around. Another uninvite. This time, they didn't even bother pretending. Lindsay posted a family photo of everyone: her, Tyler, Eileen, Greg, my 3 cousins, their spouses, and all their kids, in matching red pajamas in front of a 10-foot tree. The caption said, "Surround yourself with those who understand love, sacrifice, and faith." I was tagged in it. No. I'm not kidding. I was tagged in a post specifically designed to cut me out. I blocked her that night. Then the rumors started. According to a mutual friend, Eileen had been telling people at her Bible study that I've rejected motherhood out of bitterness and that I've refused to help Lindsay out of jealousy. Jealousy? Jealous of what, exactly? A woman who begged her atheist little sister to carry her child because she thought God owed her a baby? Even extended family started treating me differently. My Aunt Karen, who I was once really close to, texted me saying, "I can't believe you wouldn't give your sister this gift. You'll regret this when you're older and alone." My cousin Maddie unfollowed me on everything. My uncle Leo, who I hadn't spoken to in over a year, sent me a message on Facebook saying, "You should be ashamed. Lindsay would have given you a kidney. Lindsay has never even shared her fries, let alone a major organ." But here's what broke me. It wasn't the boycott. It wasn't even the gossip. It was my own mom, Eileen, showing up at my apartment in mid-January with a gift basket and fake tears. She brought me a candle, homemade cookies, and a Bible. Sat on my couch like nothing had happened. Told me she forgives me. Then, and I swear to God I wish I were making this up, she asked me one more time if I would reconsider. She had even printed out a folder titled, "Blessed Surrogacy Journey, Haley and Lindsay's Miracle." It had pages. Pages. Timelines, devotionals, OBGYN referrals, financial plans. She'd already chosen my doctor and what church I'd be attending during pregnancy. I told her to get out. She called me cruel and damaged. Said I was spitting in the face of God's plan. Said she didn't even recognize me anymore. "You used to be sweet," she said. "Now you're just empty." I stood there frozen. Not because her words hurt, but because I suddenly saw her clearly for the first time. This woman didn't love me. Not really. She loved the version of me she invented in her head. One that obeyed. One that submitted. And that version died a long time ago. She left. But not before saying, "I hope someday someone denies you the one thing your heart longs for." I closed the door. And I didn't cry. I just stood there, shaking, trying to make sense of the rage flooding my chest. Not grief. Not guilt. Rage. I opened my phone and saw that Lindsay had just posted a new life update on her blog. After months of heartbreak, I've accepted that some family isn't really family. But God is still faithful. I may not have a baby yet, but I have peace. And I know my child will come even if it's not from the womb I hoped for. Thousands of likes. Dozens of comments. Your strength is inspiring. God will honor your pain. Shame on whoever hurt you. That's when I realized something. They were going to keep doing this. They were going to keep painting me as the villain. Keep telling half-truths. Keep weaponizing faith to erase my voice. So I started writing. Not petty comments. Not vague posts. I started documenting. Compiling. Remembering all the things they thought I'd stay silent about. All the secrets. All the lies. All the Christian love that disappeared the second I didn't play along. I made a folder on my desktop, Family Files. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet. But I knew it was time to stop playing nice. Because if they wanted to make me out to be the villain, fine. I'd be the villain. And the first thing villains do? They tell the truth nobody else will. Villains don't always start out with a master plan. Sometimes, it's just quiet anger. A building pressure. 1,000 slights you've ignored, until suddenly, you stop ignoring them. That was me. After my entire family turned on me for refusing to carry a baby for my older sister Lindsay, and after months of guilt-tripping, ghosting, and gaslighting, I decided I was done keeping the peace. I was done protecting people who never gave a damn about protecting me. So I made a folder on my desktop called Family Files. And I started collecting. You know what's funny? When you've been the black sheep of the family long enough, people get sloppy around you. They forget you're watching. They think your silence is stupidity. But I remember everything. Everything they thought I was too selfish or disconnected to notice. The first thing I added to the folder was a PDF scan of an old letter. One I found in our attic when I was 15. It was from Lindsay, addressed to a boy named Caleb. Postmarked in 2009, right before her freshman year at a Christian college in Georgia. In it, she tells him not to worry, she's handling it. That she can't go through with another one, but her mom knows someone who can make it disappear. It took me years to realize what she meant. Lindsay had been pregnant. More than once. And Eileen, our very Christian, very pro-life mother, knew. I also remembered something else. In high school, Lindsay suddenly dropped out of cheerleading and left for a religious retreat for 3 months. Eileen told everyone it was a calling. But now I'm 29. I know what a calling means when a teenage girl vanishes quietly and comes back with dead eyes and a bigger cross around her neck. That was just the beginning. I had texts from my cousin Rebecca, sent years ago, when we both got drunk at a 4th of July barbecue. She told me she once walked in on Greg, my dad, yelling at my mom for secretly loaning money to Lindsay again. Like 10 grand, Rebecca had texted. For IVF or rent or ick. Your dad said she's bleeding them dry. At the time, I brushed it off as family drama. But now? Now I was starting to understand something I'd always suspected. My parents were bankrolling Lindsay's life while scolding me for needing help with a down payment on my first apartment. Oh, and you want the real kicker? 3 years ago, I confided in Eileen that I'd gone to therapy for PTSD after something that happened when I was 17. I'd never told anyone in the family before. But I was in a vulnerable place. I told her that I'd been touched, groped, actually, by our cousin Dylan during a weekend family trip. He was 19 at the time. I was sleeping on the couch and woke up to his hands under the blanket. I froze. I didn't scream. I told no one. Because Dylan was the golden boy. High school quarterback. Went to church camp. Played guitar. And I knew what would happen if I told. Still, I told Eileen, at 26, hoping I'd finally be believed. She looked at me like I'd insulted her. Her exact words were, "Don't start drama. That boy has a good future. Don't ruin it over something that didn't go anywhere. He still comes to every family function. Still hugs me like nothing happened. Still sends me Christmas cards signed 'Love you, cousin.'" Yeah. I put that in the folder, too. But the biggest entry, the one that made my hands shake as I typed it, came from a memory I had buried so deep I didn't even realize I still carried it. It was from when I was 19. I was home for the summer after my first year of college. Lindsay and Tyler had been married for almost a year by then. One night, I came home from a party and accidentally walked in on Tyler in the garage, on the phone. He was pacing, angry. He didn't see me. But I heard him. He was saying something like, "I told you, I can't leave her. Her parents paid for our house. I'm not throwing that away just because you changed your mind." I didn't know who he was talking to. But it wasn't Lindsay. And the tone wasn't youth pastor. It was desperate. I never mentioned it to anyone. Because at the time, I didn't understand. I just thought it was weird. Maybe work stuff. But looking back, the signs were there. And now I had context. Lindsay's marriage? A mess. Their happy Christian couple aesthetic? A lie. Tyler had been cheating. Maybe once. Maybe ongoing. I didn't know. But I suspected. And I knew Lindsay suspected too, because 6 months after that summer, she suddenly dropped out of her Christian influencer brand and went off-grid for 2 months. No one ever explained why. So yeah, I documented everything. Dates, memories, screenshots, details. I didn't post anything. Not yet. But I started writing it out in story form. Honest. Unapologetic. Part confession. Part exposure. Part catharsis. And I titled it, What Happens When Family Stops Loving You for Saying No. I didn't know if I'd ever share it publicly. But something about writing it all out, reliving the things I'd been gaslit into forgetting, gave me my voice back. Until then, my life had been shaped by my silence. My role in the family was the quiet one, the rebel, the disappointment. The one they could humiliate, then guilt into forgiving. Over and over again. But something had shifted. The moment they tried to turn my uterus into a community resource, and then punished me for not letting them, something snapped. And once it snapped, I couldn't pretend anymore. They thought their secrets were safe because I was quiet. Because I walked away instead of burning it all down. But they forgot something. I don't owe them silence. I owe myself the truth. The moment I hit publish, I knew there was no going back. I didn't plan it. Not exactly. It was 2:07 a.m., a Sunday night in early March, and I couldn't sleep. My laptop was still open to the folder I'd titled Family Files. I kept rereading the same few paragraphs of the draft I'd been writing, trying to decide if I was being too harsh, too personal, too real. But every time I hovered over delete, I thought of Lindsay's blog post about betrayal from those closest to you. I thought of my mother, Eileen, returning my birthday gift unopened. I thought of Thanksgiving dinner without me, of being cropped out of family photos, of being erased for refusing to carry a child I didn't want. And then I thought, why should I protect people who've never protected me? I didn't name names. Not directly. I posted it on Medium, anonymously, though anyone in our extended circle would know exactly who I was referring to. The title was simple. I said no to being my sister's surrogate. My family called me selfish. Here's what really happened. I poured everything into that post, the dinner ambush, the coercion disguised as faith, the way I was excommunicated like some apostate for choosing myself. But I didn't stop there. I wrote about the hypocrisy. About how my sister had multiple abortions in college, something our pro-life parents covered up to protect their perfect daughter's image. I wrote about the cousin who groped me when I was 17 and how my mother told me not to ruin his future. I wrote about the way Lindsay's husband had likely been unfaithful, and how her refusal to face that fact had been projected onto me like I was the one breaking her world apart. It wasn't angry. I didn't scream. I didn't curse. It was calm. Raw. Clinical, almost. But every word carried a weight I had spent years swallowing. And now I was spitting it back out, letter by letter. I hit publish, shut my laptop, and went to bed. The next morning, I had 70 unread emails. Within 6 hours, the post had 14,000 views. By midnight, it was on Reddit, Twitter, Facebook. Someone even screen recorded it and uploaded it to TikTok, narrating it like a dramatic monologue. My inbox was a war zone, strangers thanking me for speaking up, others accusing me of attention-seeking, some demanding I take it down before I destroy my family. But I didn't take it down. I watched it spread like fire. And then my phone rang. It was my cousin Daniel, one of the few decent ones, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, but who always gave me side smiles at reunions. I let it go to voicemail. He texted me right after. Haley. I read it. I'm sorry. For everything. We all knew, we just pretended not to. I wish I'd said something sooner. I cried. Not because he was right. But because it was the first time anyone in my family believed me, openly. 3 hours later, Lindsay texted me for the first time in over 3 months. It said, "How dare you?" Just that. I didn't respond. Then I got a message from a mutual acquaintance, Rachel, who attends Lindsay's church. She sent me screenshots of a thread in the women's group chat. The members were tearing into her. Saying things like, "She always acted like she was perfect. Now it makes sense. If this is true, she used her sister like a pawn. Where's the repentance?" By noon the next day, Lindsay made her blog private. By 3 p.m., Eileen posted on Facebook. It's heartbreaking when lies are spread in the name of healing. We forgive the pain she's caused. God knows the truth. The comments were full of support from her friends, until someone found the Medium post and started replying to each of them with quotes from it. Verbatim. Paragraphs. Citations. Screenshots. The image cracked. And when it cracked, everything spilled out. Greg, my father, called me that night. I almost didn't pick up. But part of me needed to know if he'd finally say something real. He didn't. His voice was cold. Detached. Like a man giving bad news he'd already rehearsed. You should be ashamed of yourself. Your mother hasn't stopped crying. Lindsay hasn't left the house in 2 days. You've humiliated this family. I said nothing. He continued. We took you in. We gave you everything. And this is how you repay us? Gave me everything? I almost laughed. I finally said, you mean like when you told me I'd never make it on my own if I didn't become a nurse like Mom? Or when you told me Lindsay deserved more support because she was building a family and I was just playing with computers? He went quiet. I didn't call to argue, he finally said. I called to say we don't want contact with you. Not unless you fix this. Fix what? I asked. The truth? Take it down. I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to my father. The aftermath was nuclear. Mutual friends took sides. One of my old aunts, Eileen's sister, Lori, reached out via email. Said she'd known about the Dylan incident. Said Eileen told her I made it up for attention. She apologized. Said she was sorry she stayed silent. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. Because the post was still out there. Still climbing. By the end of the week, it had been shared on multiple feminist forums. 2 podcasts reached out asking if I wanted to speak anonymously about reproductive coercion. I didn't respond to any of them. I wasn't doing this for fame. I wasn't even doing it for vindication anymore. I did it because no one else would. My family had boycotted me for saying no to a pregnancy I never wanted. So I boycotted their silence. They wanted me to carry a child to heal the family. Instead, I carried a truth they couldn't bury anymore. The internet has a half-life. Posts go viral, people rage share them, comment wars flare, and then, like clockwork, it all quiets down. But this wasn't that. My post didn't go away. Every time it started to fade from one corner of the internet, it resurfaced in another. A parenting group picked it up. Then a feminist podcast did a dramatic reading. A woman on TikTok with 300K followers made a 5-part series on it, calling it the most devastating family drama she'd ever read. The story took on a life of its own. And I was somewhere in the eye of the storm, calm and still, while everyone around me burned. Because burn it did. My sister Lindsay may have gone quiet online, but real-world consequences started stacking up like dominoes. Her life coaching business? Cancelled. Apparently, a few of her clients recognized her from the post. It didn't help that screenshots of her Instagram were still floating around with quotes like, "Some family is toxic and must be prayed for from a distance," placed directly next to my lines about her secret abortions and her manipulative behavior. One of her ex-clients reached out to me, a woman named Stacy, who said Lindsay once told her that infertility was God's test for faithfulness. She made me feel like I deserved my miscarriage, Stacy wrote. I trusted her with the worst part of my life. Lindsay's Facebook was nuked. The blog was gone. Her podcast stopped updating. She ghosted the internet completely. Mom, Eileen, wasn't so lucky. She tried to stay in the fight. Started posting Bible verses about honor thy father and mother, then pivoted to posting vague memes about betrayal, fake people, and truth-tellers who weaponize their pain. None of it worked. One of her oldest friends, a woman named Monica, who'd known our family since I was a kid, commented under one of her posts. Eileen, I love you, but your silence on Dylan was unforgivable. I remember when Haley stopped coming to family events and I asked why. You said she was moody. I always wondered. She got dogpiled. Not by strangers, by people we knew. People from our church. Old friends. Women Eileen did Bible study with. That night, Mom deleted her entire profile. My cousin Dylan? He was still quiet. Still lurking. Still untouched, for now. But people were asking questions. His wife's sister messaged me privately. Said she'd always felt off about him. Said she believed me. And my dad? Greg? Dead silent. Just like always. No social media. No damage control. Just one final text a few days after I'd ignored his call. You've chosen your path. We'll pray for you. I didn't answer. But none of it compared to what happened the following weekend. Saturday night. I was watching a rerun of Parks and Rec, half asleep on the couch, when I heard a knock on my door. I checked the peephole. It was Tyler. My sister's husband. Wearing jeans, a wrinkled t-shirt, and a look on his face that I hadn't seen since their engagement dinner, something hollow and tired and scared. I opened the door just a crack. What are you doing here? He looked down. Then back up. Can we talk? Every cell in my body screamed no. But curiosity, that stupid, traitorous curiosity, won. I opened the door. We sat on opposite ends of my couch. He didn't touch anything. Just held his hands between his knees like he was praying. I'm not here to defend her, he said finally. Or your parents. I wanted you to know you were right. My chest tightened. About what? He hesitated. Then laughed softly. Everything. The way they treated you. The pressure. The favoritism. All of it. He took out his phone. Scrolled. Handed it to me. A note, typed in his own words. I watched Lindsay and her parents manipulate you, guilt you, and exile you. I knew it was wrong. I let it happen. I didn't speak up. And I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say. He continued. I knew she'd had abortions before we got married. I knew her parents helped hide them. When she started spiraling about not being able to have kids, she needed someone to blame. And you were easy. I said nothing. Just let the words settle like ash. She loved the idea of a baby more than she ever wanted to deal with what it actually meant. And when you said no, that was her worst nightmare. Not because you betrayed her. Because you reminded her she wasn't entitled to anything. That got to me. He looked up. His voice cracked. I think she hates you because you're free. And she's not. I asked him why he was telling me all this. He stared at the wall for a long time. Then said, because I'm leaving her. I blinked. Wait. What? She's been in a spiral since your post. Blaming everyone. Screaming. Crying. Accusing me of turning people against her. She trashed the kitchen last night. Broke plates. Screamed at my mother on the phone. And I realized I was staying married out of obligation. Not love. I swallowed hard. He leaned forward. I just wanted you to know I see it now. All of it. And I'm sorry. He stood up and left. I sat there for 10 minutes without moving. Without thinking. The room was too quiet. I don't know if he wanted forgiveness. Or absolution. Or if maybe he just needed to speak the truth out loud, finally. But that night, I wrote a single sentence in my journal. For the first time, someone in my family didn't ask me to shrink. I didn't post anything that day. Didn't respond to any messages. Didn't drag it further. But something was changing. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about release. There's a weird quiet that comes after a personal apocalypse. You think it'll feel victorious. You think you'll be riding a wave of relief, basking in vindication. But it's not like that. It's slow. Hollow. Still. After I published the post exposing everything my family buried, the manipulation, the secrets, the things no one dared say out loud, I expected fireworks. But instead, I got silence. Cold, echoing silence. And it was both terrifying and peaceful. In the weeks that followed Tyler's visit, after he told me he was leaving Lindsay, after he apologized for everything, the chaos that had engulfed my life began to dim. There were no more blog posts about me. No more Facebook messages from second cousins calling me selfish. No more fake piety dressed up as concern. Just nothing. Lindsay never reached out again. I heard through someone that she'd moved in with Greg and Eileen temporarily while Tyler filed for divorce. I don't know what happened to her coaching clients, her podcast, her curated brand of faith-based perfection. It all went dark. My mother? She still hadn't spoken to me. Not a text. Not a call. I saw her once, by accident, at a local grocery store. She was near the dairy section, picking out creamers. I saw her first. I watched her notice me, her eyes caught mine, just for a second, and then she turned, sharp, and walked away like I wasn't even there. It should have hurt. And maybe some tiny part of me did still want her to come running, to apologize, to hold me the way she hadn't since I was 8 and fell off my bike. But mostly I felt free. There were a lot of little things that started happening after that. Things that, on the surface, weren't huge, but they mattered. They told me that something in the universe had shifted. I got a job offer from a startup in Seattle. A damn good one. Remote, 6 figures, better benefits. When I told them I needed a week to think it over, the manager said, "No rush. We want you rested, not rushed." I cried after that call. Not because of the money. But because someone, finally, valued me for who I was, not what I could give up. I started therapy again. A new therapist this time, a woman named Maya, mid-40s, warm-eyed and dry-humored. She didn't ask me to forgive anyone. Didn't push me to reconcile. She just listened. And then she said, "You're grieving people who are still alive. That's the hardest kind." I nodded, and I didn't even realize I was crying until I noticed the tissue in my hand was soaked. We talked a lot about identity. About family roles. About how I'd been conditioned to see boundaries as betrayal. How Lindsay's pain had always been prioritized, while mine was inconvenient. How I'd been cast as the villain the moment I chose myself. Maya gave me homework, to write a list of what I was no longer responsible for. Here's what I wrote. I am not responsible for Lindsay's infertility. I am not responsible for my parents' fragile image. I am not responsible for Dylan's future. I am not responsible for forgiving people who never said sorry. I am not responsible for making others comfortable by lying about my pain. I am not responsible for carrying a child I never wanted. I taped it to my mirror. And every morning, I read it aloud. Even when it made my voice tremble. The irony? The more I let go of being the good daughter, the more real people came into my life. My cousin Daniel, the one who had texted me weeks earlier, came to visit. We got tacos and beers and talked like we hadn't in years. He told me he was cutting ties with the family too. Said his own parents were pissed at him for taking my side. I'm not taking sides, he told them. I'm taking reality. He told me he admired what I did. That I had guts. I told him it wasn't guts, it was exhaustion. I reconnected with an old college friend, Jess, who invited me to a small weekend trip to Santa Fe. I almost said no. I'd been living in hypervigilance for months, scared of backlash, scared of attention, scared of letting myself feel anything other than control. But I said yes. And that weekend, walking through desert air, sipping sangria under a red dusk sky, laughing with people who didn't see me as a cautionary tale, I felt something crack open. I felt like I was coming back to life. It wasn't perfect. I still had nightmares. I still flinched when I saw messages from unknown numbers. I still battled with the guilt, the kind that doesn't make sense, but clings to you anyway. The kind you inherit when you grow up being told that love is conditional, and acceptance comes at the cost of obedience. But I was learning to sit with it. To stare it down. To say, "You're not mine anymore." One night, I got a message request from someone unexpected. It was from Dylan's younger sister, Maggie. She's a nurse now. Lives in Denver. Her message was short. "I believe you. I always did. I'm sorry it took me this long to say it." I cried harder after that message than I had in weeks. Because it felt like a thread had been pulled, a loose one that had always been there, waiting for someone else to notice. A few days later, she sent a follow-up. I confronted him. He didn't deny it. She didn't say more. She didn't need to. The weight of it hit me all over again. But this time, it didn't crush me. It validated me. What I'd done, speaking out, it mattered. Not because it caused drama. But because it broke the silence. Because it made people look. I still hadn't spoken to Lindsay. And maybe I never would. I'd stopped stalking her socials. I'd stopped checking old emails. Whatever apology I once hoped for, I no longer needed it. That's the thing about healing no one warns you about. It's not a climax. It's not a final boss battle. It's 100 quiet decisions a day to not let what hurt you keep deciding who you are. Every day, I woke up and chose to be mine. And for the first time, that was enough. It had been 74 days since Tyler came to my apartment. 52 since Eileen turned her back in the grocery store. 38 since Maggie confirmed what I already knew about Dylan. And then the letter arrived. Not an email. Not a message. A physical letter, handwritten, sealed, and addressed in neat cursive to Haley Miller with my full apartment number. No return address. But I knew the handwriting. I knew it instantly. I'd grown up watching that penmanship on Christmas tags, school notes, and church birthday cards. It was Lindsay's. I stared at the envelope for a long time. I didn't open it right away. I didn't want to. I wasn't sure if it would be another manipulative guilt bomb, or if it was finally an apology, too late, maybe, but real. Eventually, I sat down with it at my kitchen table. No distractions. Just me, a cup of peppermint tea, and the weight of 10 years of silence and shouting between us. The letter was 6 pages long. Front and back. No wasted space. She wrote like she was afraid to stop, afraid that if she did, she'd lose her nerve. And honestly, I don't think she ever expected me to respond. Here's what it said. I've paraphrased some of it, but I kept her words where they mattered most. Haley, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I wouldn't blame you if you tore this up before even reading the first line. But I need to say these things, and I can't say them online or over the phone. You deserve more than a digital apology. I've been in hell the last few months. Not because of what you wrote, but because it was true. All of it. And when I saw your words out in the world, when I saw strangers react to them, I realized how small I'd made you feel all these years. How loud my pain had always been, and how I'd let it drown yours out. You didn't owe me your body. You didn't owe me anything. And the fact that I tried to make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. I'm ashamed. I've been seeing someone. A therapist. For the first time, I'm talking about things I buried a long time ago. Yes, I had abortions. Yes, Mom helped me hide them. No, Tyler didn't know the full truth until later. That's on me. I was terrified of being a mother back then. And when I finally wanted it, it felt like punishment. Like I'd missed the window and God was closing the door. But instead of taking that up with myself, I made it your responsibility. I manipulated you, Haley. I used our family's pressure as armor. I let them turn on you so I wouldn't have to face my own disappointment. I am so sorry. You didn't deserve any of it. Not the exile. Not the silence. Not the shame. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to write back. I just needed you to know that I'm trying, really trying, to be honest with myself for the first time in my life. I miss you. And whether or not you ever speak to me again, I will always carry that. Lindsay. When I finished reading, I just sat there. For a long time. The pages were still warm from my hands. Her words echoed in my head like a bell ringing long after it stopped moving. There was no anger in the letter. No excuses. It wasn't perfect. But it was raw. It was hers. And it was more than I ever thought she'd give. I didn't write back right away. I waited. I waited because I didn't want to write out of obligation. Or guilt. Or performative grace. I wanted to answer with clarity, not out of habit, but out of truth. When I finally did, it was shorter than hers. But every word was mine. Lindsay. I read your letter. Thank you for telling the truth. I didn't know if you ever would. And honestly, I stopped needing you to, a long time ago. But it still meant something. I'm not ready for a reunion. I'm not ready to pretend everything is fine. Because it's not. Some things are broken in ways that can't be put back together. But that doesn't mean healing is impossible, just that it may look different for both of us. I hope your therapy is helping. I mean that. You're right, you hurt me. Badly. But I've hurt myself too, for years, by trying to be the version of a sister you wanted, instead of the one I actually am. That's over now. I don't hate you. But I'm building something new for myself. And for once, it doesn't include walking back into rooms where I was once asked to disappear. I hope you're building something too. Haley. I mailed it. With no return address. Just like hers. I didn't hear back. And I didn't need to. It wasn't closure. Closure is a myth, a ribbon tied around a bomb. But it was something real. Two women raised in the same house, shaped by the same silence, finally saying the things no one let us say out loud. I don't know if I'll ever see Lindsay again. Maybe someday. Maybe not. But I know this. We are no longer standing in the shadow of the same lie. And that's enough for me. I thought the story would end with silence. I thought that after the letter, after Lindsay and I exchanged our truths and stepped away again, that would be it. That the door would quietly click shut, no grand finale, no dramatic confrontation. Just space. And maybe, with enough time, peace. But life rarely ends the way you script it. About 2 months after I sent my letter, I was sitting at my usual corner table at Steep and Grind, the coffee shop 3 blocks from my apartment, working on a new website redesign for a client. It was a rainy Thursday. The kind of gray, drizzly day where no one makes eye contact and everyone's half asleep. I had my headphones in, white noise humming, latte half full beside my keyboard. I barely noticed someone walking up to me, until they gently tapped the edge of my table. I looked up. It was Eileen. My mother. Hair neatly curled. Wedding ring gone. Raincoat soaked at the hem. Hands folded tightly over her purse like a shield. For a second, I wondered if I was hallucinating. She didn't sit down. Didn't ask if she could. She just said, "I'm not here to make excuses." I took my headphones out, not saying anything. She looked smaller than I remembered. "I read your post," she continued. "Months ago." I waited. I didn't respond because I didn't know how. And then I didn't respond because I was angry. Not because it wasn't true. But because I knew it was. I kept waiting. "I failed you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I failed both of you. I spent so long trying to protect what I thought a family should look like. I stopped seeing what it actually was." A long pause. She swallowed hard. "I thought love was about sacrifice. About quiet. About holding the line. But I see now, I asked you to bleed for someone else and called it loyalty." Still, I said nothing. Because I wasn't ready to let her off the hook. Not yet. She must have seen that in my eyes, because she nodded. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to say it to your face. That I'm sorry. For everything. For what happened to you. For what I said. For what I didn't say. And then, her voice cracked. For not protecting you when I should have. She didn't cry. Not fully. But her eyes glassed over. She reached into her purse and placed a small envelope on my table. This isn't pressure. Just something I wanted to give you. I looked down at it. It had my name. Just my name. I'm leaving now, she said. You don't have to call. You don't have to respond. I wanted you to know I see you now. For real. She left. I didn't touch the envelope right away. I sat there, staring at it for a long time. Baristas moved behind the counter. A student laughed too loudly behind me. Outside, the rain smeared the windows in slow gray streaks. Eventually, I opened it. Inside was a short note. Just 6 words. You were always worth defending. Mom. And behind it, a photo. A picture of me at 9 years old, standing on a diving board at the city pool, one arm out like I was flying, the other clutched around a neon green towel. My mouth wide open mid-laugh. My eyes squinting against the sun. It wasn't a big gesture. It wasn't everything. But it was something. A fracture in the wall. A tiny, cautious bridge where there used to be nothing but rubble. 3 weeks later, I moved. I took the new job in Seattle. A sleek apartment. Hardwood floors. A skyline view. I didn't take much with me, just a few keepsakes, my cat, my laptop, and a folder labeled family files, now stored on an encrypted drive. I almost deleted it. Almost. But I kept it. Not out of bitterness. But because those pages are no longer just about pain. They're a record of me taking back my story. Page by page. My therapist Maya told me something on my last day before the move. Closure isn't a door slamming shut. It's a window you learn to open on your own terms. I think she's right. I don't speak to most of my family. Greg never reached out again. Dylan vanished from every group chat. Lindsay sent me a message a month later, short and simple. Thank you for your letter. I'm glad you're finding peace. I'm trying to do the same. No signature. No push. Just words. And that's all they needed to be. I don't know how this story ends long term. Maybe one day I'll see Lindsay again, sitting across from me at some future wedding or funeral or random moment neither of us planned for. Maybe she'll be remarried. Maybe I will be. Maybe we'll nod at each other like 2 people who survived the same fire from opposite sides of the flame. Or maybe we won't speak again. And that's okay too. Because what I've learned is this. Family isn't who demands the most from you. It's not who shares your last name or blood type. It's who honors your boundaries. Who sees your no as sacred instead of selfish. And healing? Healing looks like this. It looks like a quiet apartment in a city far from the one that raised you. It looks like your own paycheck. Your own rules. It looks like not explaining yourself anymore. It looks like choosing peace, not performance. It looks like knowing that you were never the villain. You were just the first person to say, this isn't love. Not like this. And that, I've learned, is the bravest thing you can do.